If you're looking for new artists locally and even more broadly, then you've come to the right place. If you're in the mood, as Glenn Miller would say, for some American Standard songs, and we have a really great guest with us here on the show. I'm Stephanie Lombardo with my co-host Colton Murray, and this lovely young lady is very talented. She's originally from Long Island. This is her debut solo CD. It's called Day In, Day Out. I'd like to welcome Samantha Carlson to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us.
That is a fantastic solo artist name, Samantha Carlson.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. It's memorable.
It is memorable.
So you grew up here on Long Island. You have a very musical family that I know of.
Yes.
Have they influenced you heavily? Tell us a little bit about how you got started
Absolutely.
in your music career.
Before I can even talk or anything, music was just so in my life. My parents sang, played musical instruments. My dad with the guitar, my mom with the piano. And so they would always play music around me. And I just kind of grew up singing. They always say I can sing before I could talk, but you should hear me when I was a really young kid. But that's another story. But I always loved it. I always had it, in me.
Okay,
so
great.
Really, my whole life was involved with it.
Nice. What kind of music did they play? Was it American standards?
No, not really, which is interesting because they, from the baby boomer generation, doing the music from the 60s, 70s, and I never really got into that kind of music until one day my dad, he brought home a CD of the standards and the Italian singers, and I was like, yeah, that's what I like.
Okay, great.
I was about 12 when I really came into knowing what I loved.
Okay, and what was it about those singers? Was it Dean Martin that you heard, or who were those artists?
Actually, I heard him on that CD, but he wasn't the first love, I could say. I really, really loved Jerry Vale, Lou Monte, and then later, of course, when I listened to Dean, he stole my heart. He still has my heart and always will.
Okay. Tony Bennett, a little bit there too.
Oh, Tony Bennett. We're going to go see him again I think I've seen him like 5 times in concert, and he's still... Nice. He's still doing it, and now that he teamed up with Lady Gaga and everything, it's just
Interesting.
I mean, he's a class act, and she is in her own way, and the two of them together just really have so much to offer. So yeah, I love watching him. I love his personality and of course his voice.
Great.
Did that influence your decision to do jazz?
One of them. I had been singing the American Songbook pretty much, like I said, from when I was like 12 until maybe 18, 19 years old. And then actually when I moved to Cincinnati, I realized, well, they don't really call them that there. They consider it more jazz. So I was like, okay, let me get with real jazz musicians and start doing jazz. So it was really an easy transition because a lot of the songs are the same. It's just how they're performed, really.
Right.
So it was really just like I said, easy transition, and I learned a lot. I would say Ella Fitzgerald, her style is the one that taught me how to do the jazzisms, if you want to call.
Yeah.
And other influences just from listening to other artists and developing my own sound.
Right.
In between that, kind of picking and choosing what I like from other artists like Judy Garland and Barbra Streisand. I love their power, and I loved Ella's jazz style. So I like to try to combine those and make my own style.
Okay. Now, I think it's very unique. You're very young. You're in your 20s, right?
Yes.
And you still admire and appreciate classic sounding music, American standards. What is it about jazz in particular that really calls to you, with that genre?
Well, I think it's classic, and it's not going to go out of style. And I think it's something that you can listen to and not get tired of, at least for me. It's very relaxing. It's very passionate. It's a passionate genre.
Definitely.
And I love to see musicians up there and just doing what they do and honing their craft and just putting things out there, improvising, and you watch them. I mean, not only in what they play, but their expressions, whether it be a vocalist, whether it be an instrumentalist, they're thinking and at the same time letting it flow through them, whatever just comes out at that very moment. It's just so inspirational. So
it's just like different every time.
Yeah, pretty much.
It is. And they just have to let that happen.
Yeah, I think it's coming back now. Even Michael Bublé and other artists like that, they're really kind of connecting with that sound. Even Adele, I think she has a more classic sounding voice.
Yes, she does.
And she's starting to do like different things. Like there are very few performances now that are the exact same.
Right.
Which goes with saying that there are other performances that are the exact same.
Exactly.
But it's just much more fun. Like jazz,
I think so.
I've always been a fan of.
Yeah, exactly. So. I think you stand out a lot more if you go into that genre these days. Especially.
Like, what do I feel like singing today? Does it work? Cool, let's do it.
Yeah.
Exactly. We'll take the same song and we'll do it a different way each time. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, here's a crowd. Well, what would they like? Well, if they're really into the up-tempo songs, we can make it ridiculously like fast and swing. And if we had just done a swing song, let's give it a Latin beat today, or let's do it as a ballad because they like the ballads. I mean, it's just really fun to just be so spontaneous like that.
Exactly.
And it actually come out good. It's like, oh wow, we tricked the audience today.
Right, exactly. Now you have collaboration with other artists. I have Samantha and the Alchemist here, the EP.
Yes.
And I know that you are preparing a third album as well. So let's talk about Samantha and the Alchemist first.
Sure.
Because you got a lot going on. I got to try to crunch it all into this interview.
Well, I had been working with a guitarist whose name is Miguel Castellanos. I met him back in Cincinnati, and he had been writing instrumentals, and he wanted a vocalist to collaborate with and be able to write melodies and lyrics to his instrumentals.
Great.
So at first I was like, okay, I'm really not sure where this is going, but once we got to the first few songs, I said, yeah, this is going to work.
Great.
And so it's more in the genres of like folk and Celtic, pop-ish, really a lot of crossover stuff going on.
So it's a little different than what you were normally used to for
absolutely.
many years.
And it's funny because it's easier for me to write in that style than it would be for jazz.
Oh, great. So this is both. Are there cover songs on here, or are these originals?
These are 5 originals on there. And so we're just really proud of the album because we wrote it, and now we're bringing it out to an audience, and so far we've gotten good feedback on it when we do perform out, and people will say, oh, they like this song, and just kind of give us feedback, which is so cool because it's something that we created together, something I hadn't really done much of previously.
Exactly, right. It definitely helps you grow as an artist.
Oh, for sure.
And even as a solo artist, of course. And tell us about the third album you have coming out.
Well, the third album, I've gotten 3 tracks done so far on it, and I think we're going to have about 12 on it. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a combination of the jazz standards and some originals. Like kind of some crossovers that we have going on. I'd like this album to be the album that kind of defines me as an artist because, yes, I do jazz, yes, I do originals, but I want to be able to reach out to a lot of people for the younger generation also to be able to relate. But I'm not going to go like so far out as far as doing a completely different genre. I'd like to do some crossovers, which is what I'm looking at. I'm writing some songs right now that are good crossovers.
Some fans from other genres and
and yet keep myself grounded as an artist by doing the standards, and so I'm really looking forward to that when that comes out. Hopefully by the end of the year or early next year we'll have it out.
Okay, that'll be here before you know it.
Do you do shows locally?
Here in New York, yes, I do. Every time I come back to New York, I usually book a show. Actually, I had one last night at Bourbon Street in Queens, and that I was just telling Stephanie earlier. That was an interesting venue, and
it was a rooftop venue.
It was a rooftop venue, and it was I mean, it was just so crowded in there, and it was wild.
How many people would you say showed up?
Oh my gosh, there were hundreds that were there throughout the night.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
I mean, constantly just.
And
downstairs too, so it was just like I said. I hadn't played a venue like that before. It was just the open space was absolutely gorgeous, and it was a gorgeous night. So we really lucked out.
Yeah, definitely.
But I've played. I mean, venues more like in New York City, like the Metropolitan Room. I've had a couple shows there, which has beautiful little jazz club.
Yep, I've been there.
And
I've been there to see you.
And there's, I've been a guest artist luckily a couple times at Birdland, which was, that's a legendary
huge.
Jazz club. And
That's really huge.
And
PBS too, right? You did a little special?
that was in California.
Wow.
Actually, it was being on a radio station. John Tu from who invented the SIM card. He heard me and said,
"Wow,
let's get her in." And so he had his own band, a 40 to 50 piece band.
Oh my gosh!
And he
what was that like for you?
Oh my God, that was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. I mean, they were so great, and they actually took arrangements from day in, day out, and they made it into a big band.
Oh, good.
So, because that's just like a quartet on there, and they made it, into this big band sound, and it was great.
Oh, that
So
was in California, you said,
Yes,
right?
that
So
was
did you
in
have to go there to rehearse, or
they had rehearsals. Basically, they flew me in, for a week, and so they would have a couple rehearsals that week before the show.
Oh wow,
So
that's crazy.
Now people have to go like crazy for this music because I've seen jazz clubs, I've been to jazz clubs, and people go nuts. Is the fan reaction good to all the stuff that you do? Like all the like when you go up there and you perform, people get into it?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's really different in each venue that you go to. If you're at a jazz venue, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're at a venue that the variety, you really never know what you're going to get because sometimes people they're talking, they're eating, they're drinking, and you're there, but it's like two things going on at one time, so they like what they hear, but they don't always express it immediately. They'll come up to me, after or on a break or, whatever. But yeah.
It's not as captive of an audience as you would like necessarily, but
in certain venues. But like I said, like the Metropolitan Room being one, very captive audience.
Great.
And I always like that.
It's nice. Well, your website is SamanthaCarlson.com.
Yes.
Very easy to remember. And we will look out for that third album, hopefully coming out soon this year.
Yes.
Awesome. So we look forward to hearing you perform later, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Day in, day out, the same old hoodoo follows me about. The same old pounding in my heart whenever I think of you. Darling, I think of you. Day in, day out. Day out. Day in. I needn't tell you how my days begin. When I wake with a tingle. One possibility of you, the possibility of maybe seeing you. Come rain, come shine, I'll meet you, and to me the day is fine. Then I kiss your lips, and the pattern becomes the ocean's roar, 1,000 drums. Can you see his love? Can there be any doubt when there it is, day in, day out? Ocean's roar, 9,000 drums. Can you see his love? Can there be any doubt when there it is, day in, day out?